Welcome to the Wood and Work podcast. Today, I'm your host. It's Paul from GCR Builds in the UK. Please don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Once we do get to 500 reviews, there will be a nice little giveaway prize for you. We'll give you further details on that closer to the number. So we're on all audible platforms. You can find us Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Today, we have Tommie from Black Label Carpentry back on for another chat because we like to ramble and ramble. So thank you very much for joining us today, Tommie.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Nice to see you again. So today, with you starting a position as a trim lecturer, teacher, however you want to call it,
hmm
I thought we could just talk a little bit or start before we ramble off on a tangent as per normal. We'd actually start um, the importance of learning new skills and how you
Yes.
go about learning them skills. So these are particularly limited to a woodwork scenario. I mean, it may be that you wanting to increase your social media, so you want to take a course on social media and
hmm
however.
hmm
But I was just interested to see what your process is about learning. I mean, for me, it's always been the sort of thing because obviously the generation I am that we go on Google, and from Google we found YouTube. So like when I wanted to learn, I know you have recently also. So when I wanted to learn how to spray, I mean, I did have a mate help me a little bit because he's got a car body shop. But I basically went onto YouTube, watched some
hmm
videos, picked up a gun, and started splurting paint all over the floor and the walls and everything else before I got there. So I mean, I've seen you've been spraying black, mate, and black's an absolute
Yeah.
arse to spray,
Yeah.
an absolute arse to
Yeah.
spray because black's
Yeah.
green, it's not black.
Yeah.
Um, So, what's your process? So obviously, you say you want to learn your painting. What's your
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
go about learning a skill?
Oh
Where do you look?
gosh,
How do you do it?
it is a tough one because you said you mentioned YouTube, and there are some good things out there on YouTube, but there's so much crap on YouTube at the same time that it's
Mm,
hard. You have to filter through. Who do you believe? Is it this guy or that guy? Well, this guy's got 500,000 subscribers, but as you start to learn the skill, whatever they're teaching, you might realize, oh, you know what? Maybe that's not as great as I thought it was. So now you've learned the skills that they taught you, and now you kind of have to change things to fit you. And so that's kind of what I found is I did a little bit of YouTube beforehand, but I really just went out there and just winged it, which is a little risky. Um, but yeah, I had a client that wanted a cabinet sprayed black, and I thought, well, okay, I've sprayed some stuff in the past, but I was working for somebody and we were spraying primer. So if you mess up the primer, you can just sand it down and away you go again. I wasn't doing top coat, which is, the more
finished.
difficult out of the
Yeah.
two. And yeah, I went on Facebook, picked a couple people's brains. Hey, how much do you thin this? And it was a little bit of a guessing game. I had to thin the paint down because I'm spraying on a high volume, low pressure turbine. So it's a 5 turbine system from Apollo. Um, I had to thin the paint down about 5 to 10%. And I thought, well, okay, I can try to do the math. I'm not very good at the math. Let's see what 5 to 10% is. Kind of went in there, sprayed my first coat of primer, and just asked people, hey, what PSI are you running? Where do you turn the dial? And it really was a bit of a guessing game that I had to learn so fast on the fly. And I remember spraying my first coat of primer, and I think I got a little bit lucky. I had the right size fan pattern. I had just the right pressure, kind of worked out, and then I went to spray a box, and then quickly realized, oh my gosh, I've just doused the inside corner with paint, and I've got a major run. I've put way too much paint on that. Okay, there's a mistake. That's okay. Remember, we're on primer. We can sand it down. Um, so it was a bit of a guessing game, but I did spend a couple sleepless nights, YouTube, Google, Facebook, wherever I could find information, because I couldn't get it all in one place. I had
Mm.
to take little bits of information from so many sources, and
And then find
I'd
out
be
what
laying
works
in
for you.
yeah, I'd be laying in bed at night, and my wife would be next to me saying, "Okay, like it's time to go to bed." It's like 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm still on Google. Like I'm going to be spraying this tomorrow. I need to figure out this, and it's like it's
Mm.
okay. You'll figure it out. Um, it can be a little stressful to learn new things because, you know, with the trim carpentry, I don't have everything mastered. Nobody does, but I have a really good foundation. So to take something on new where I have no clue, and paint's tricky. You know, what paint do I use? What primer? Do I thin it? What system? What needle? What cap? Like there's all these little details. And so you just kind of have to take what people say, try it out, see what works. But yeah, I mean, I went and sprayed a black cabinet and it was 90% perfect. I mean, there was a few tiny little details that I had to figure out, you know, that I should have primed before my first coat of wood putty, because the wood expanded, the putty did not. They're just these tiny little things, and you have to make these mistakes to really know. I think there's so many details when learning things that I can tell you a million things, but you can't just take it all in. So by physically doing it and making those mistakes,
Mm.
it makes you a really good whatever it is that you're doing. So
I think
l-
it's. I mean, there's several good sayings, and I always get this fucking sayings the wrong way round or backwards or whatever. But it's sort of like something along like, "Don't let your mistakes define you.
no,
Define yourself by your mistakes." Well, it's just basically
yeah,
we're always going to fuck up. We're always going to make messes of things. We're going to break things. I mean, you know, we cut bits of wood wrong all the time. So
oh,
what?
I
It's a
still
piece of
do it.
wood. Do
Yep,
you know what I mean? I mean, mate, I
yep,
do. I've been doing it nearly 25 years now.
yeah,
You know, make mistakes all the time. But it's when you make those little things, as you say, it's making what works for you. And I always, with my dogs, for example, because I've got a husky working kennel. So when I need advice over the dogs, what I've always done is I've asked, say, 10 people, got their advice of
hmm,
how to deal with a certain incident or problem. And because they're talking about different size pack, it doesn't work for me. So I always find you have
yeah,
to take bits of information off lots
you
of
do.
people, take the best
Can
bits to
yeah,
make what suits you. And I think this applies to
exactly.
work. That you know you have to learn by your mistakes. And just
Yeah,
because I tell you what filler I use,
doesn't
it
mean
might
it's
not.
gonna work. Yeah,
It might
yeah.
not because for you, with your humidity and temperature difference, it might not work because
And all the way down to smell. You could say, well, I use Bondo. Well, yeah, Bondo is a fantastic product, but it smells terrible. I mean, for
I don't know.
me, I can't do it. I don't know how some of these guys like smell the paint that they do. I get so lightheaded and just spaced out, which I know when that's happening that, you know, the toxins and whatnot are going into my body.
Yeah, but
You know,
are you spraying like 2K or something like that if you're talking about fumes? Because if you use water
well,
based, you don't get. I mean, I only spray
so,
water based with my gun because my gun's not
so
suitable for 2K.
yeah.
And like I've used pre-cat before, and I used a pre-cat, and my throat killed. I was wearing a mask still, but my throat killed because I think what happened was I'd taken the mask off a bit too early when I was in the same
Hmm.
area or something, and my throat killed. But
Yeah,
Bondo is a so those because Bondo is basically a car body filler.
it
Bondo is
is, yes.
is an American term, or
Yep.
American brand, should I say? But funnily enough, I use UPOL, which is a UK
Oh,
car
yeah,
filler.
I'm yep, very
Um,
familiar with that.
but
Yep.
no, yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm just saying because people don't always know what Bondo is. I see it on the Facebook groups. What's Bondo? You're like, it's just
Yeah. A
it's known as
two-part
It's
filler.
one of those. It's
Yeah.
one of those things. It's just known as Bondo, even though it might not be Bondo brand. It's known as
Right, it's just
Bondo
what we
as a
call it.
generic term,
Right,
isn't
yeah.
it? I love the smell of
Yeah.
filler. I love it.
Yeah, I can't stand it, especially when I'm applying it inside someone's house. Like it's so strong, and I just know
It's
that
so
it's not
strong.
good for you. I don't even like to touch it, you know, because I know, like, you know, your skin takes it all in. So as far as smell goes with Bondo, yeah, I've avoided it, and I've actually switched to a product called Colad, COLAD, and it is a UV curing putty, and
Oh,
the smell is
Colad. I
nowhere.
use their gloves, nitrate
Yeah,
gloves, thick gloves. You have to use thick
automotive.
gloves.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
automotive. Yeah, and they're mixing
Mm-hmm.
cups as well
Yeah.
because
Brilliant
I
stuff.
get them off my mate
Yeah.
who owns his own car body shop, spray shop. So
Mhm.
Colad. So I have used the UV stuff actually. Is that the one that comes in like a big toothpaste tube almost?
Kind of, yeah, and the only way to
Sort of
cure it, I mean,
more of
it
like
will
a pint
cure.
glass size almost.
Yeah, it will cure itself, but realistically, it cures in, I mean, 2 to 3 seconds with a UV light, whether it's a small
Yeah,
one
I've
or the
used that.
really
Yeah, it's
big one.
brilliant.
It's instant, and it dries really hard, which is good. So, it's been a favorite product of mine, and the smell is nowhere near
The
Bondo.
only
And it's one part. I don't need to mix it. That's the other thing.
hmm,
I'm not a big
the only
fan of
thing
mixing it, and.
the only thing I found with that though is it's it's more of a fine filler. So if you've got like a screw head that you need to cover, you have to put a deep fill in first. It's more of a top coat, and it's
Yeah.
expensive. It is very, very
Yeah,
expensive.
they do make two. They make a fine and like a rough, so a deep fill and a
Oh,
light
they do.
fill.
Well, I suppose it
Yeah,
makes sense. They would.
but
Yeah, I
it's
didn't know.
$25 for this little carton, and I can
Yeah,
go get the big tub of it's Bondo, but there's another brand for it, I can't think of it at the moment, but
yeah,
it's
but
fifty
yeah,
dollars for a US
yeah,
gallon. I mean, it's massive.
yeah.
But I don't care about the price anymore. To me, it's what works the best and what has the least offensive smell, especially when I'm in someone's home. And
Can I? Hmm.
when you just spoke about the 2K and the 1K products, yeah, they're dangerous. So a lot of people don't realize that, pre-cat lacquer and all that stuff is like oil based. So yes, your body will process it through the liver, which is damaging your body, even though it's processing it. It's damaging your body and can lead to all sorts of health issues down the line. Water-based is no safer, believe it or not, because people don't realize, well, it's water-based. Oh, we have
Well,
water in our body.
it is
But
safer to a point, but the airborne particles will still kill you.
Exactly. Your body cannot process the I think it's called isoglycinate. It might be the word for it. Is the chemical term for it, and your body will take it in, including your skin. Remember, your skin is your biggest organ on your body. It absorbs everything. It
Mm.
doesn't know how to process it, so it can actually be really dangerous. So for me, when I spray now, before I did anything, I invested in the best HEPA air scrubber I could buy, and I
Mm.
also invested in a 3M VersaFlow PAPR mask, which consists of a belt with like a bit of a motor on the back with a tube, and it goes into a full
Mm.
face helmet. So not only am I getting fresh, clean air in the booth, but I'm protecting my lungs. And if it's a little warm in the room, it's kind of giving me a bit of airflow because it gets a little hot in the paint suit. But
Yeah.
it
I
was
mean, they have them in the
very
body shop.
pricey.
In the body shops, the paint sprays they haven't, but they connect in. They have an airline that connects
Hmm.
into a airport, obviously, at the side of the spray booth. But I'm
Yeah.
talking about car automotive ones here. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing that 3M one is obviously just like more of a
It's a
portable version
standalone.
into it. Yeah,
Yeah, and you have to be careful with the guys that are plugging the ones into the body shops because I'm not completely 100% on this, but I know if there's not quite the right filtration, something going on, they could be feeding themselves essentially bad air, is
yeah.
what I'm going to
You can
call
feed
it.
yourself carbon monoxide
Yeah, so
if you're
that's
not
really
careful.
dangerous. But
But that only becomes a problem if it's bad maintenance. You don't look after
yeah,
your gear. You don't replace the filters.
which,
So
which again is an important part of teaching too. As a teacher, if I gotta teach my students to look after their stuff, I always say you take care of your tools, and your tools will take care of you. So
that's a very old and
always
well-known saying.
do your best to take care of those things, even the smallest things. Once a week, just go through. Always clean your tools, but a little bit of lubrication on there, and it all makes a difference. So, and the same, your mask. Do a checkup on your mask. Is my filter good? Is it ready to go? Do I have any leaks? Just doing some precautionary checks because it could save your life. As crazy as it sounds, it's all it takes. A loose blade
Mm,
or a loose hose, anything. I don't think we realize how
yeah,
dangerous our jobs can be sometimes. We just take it
no,
for
absolutely.
granted, don't we?
Yeah, but I'll say with the sorry learning, we talked about well, it's a sort of bane of a lot of people's lives. Oh, God, I don't like the thing, but Facebook. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, there's any subject you want to go into, whether it be spraying, woodworking, plumbing, whatever,
Mhm.
or I mean, social media, anything. There's
Yeah.
always at least a dozen Facebook groups of that particular. I mean, to a point, they're always good starting points to get an idea.
They
But the
are.
problem, but like I've noticed there's one group in particular that I'm on Facebook, a woodworking one. I mean, I actually joined it for more of a research perspective to
Mhm.
find out what it's woodworkers for beginners. So obviously, I'm far from a beginner, but I use it as a resource for me to
hmm
find out what people want to know, what they want to learn, so I can make a video on that to put it on my YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah.
So
You've
I'm
got a
doing it
different
that way, and
purpose. Yeah.
obviously I'm putting on answers on there on some posts to say, look, this is the answer to the question you've got.
Right.
The
Yeah.
amount
Which
of
can be a
people,
full-time job, by the way.
oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, I don't do it all the time. Obviously, it's just if I happen to be on, I'll put an answer on, but only
Yeah.
even know the
Yeah.
answer because again, I might know a lot, I might be very knowledgeable across the board, but there's stuff I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well,
But
and
again, I find there's a lot of misinformation, as you say out there. You got to be
oh
careful of.
my, oh
I
my
mean, the
goodness,
amount of
especially,
people put on, oh no, this, that, and the other. I'm like, no, you're wrong there, mate.
yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
like,
I've
so
seen it
no,
a
no,
lot
no.
with
And I'm
paint.
like, no, I'm telling you, with a 25-year experience, I am
Yeah.
telling
Yeah.
you, blah blah blah, and I can categorically say this is the right answer. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you
I
don't know what you're
mean,
talking about. I've been doing it this way for the last 3 months. I'm like, right, just
yeah.
because you're doing something a certain way doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's
No,
safe.
no, and on the flip side of that as well, which I will say because I'm young, is the guy says, "Well, I've been doing it this way for 30 years," and I'm like, "Okay, I've been doing it for 10, you've been doing it for 30, but it doesn't mean that there aren't new ways to do these things or new
Exactly.
products." Like,
Again.
you
Oh
have to
yeah.
be so open to learning new things. I think the moment that you shut down and start denying anybody else, that's a dangerous spot to be in because there could be, oh, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's a bad attitude, I think, to have. There's
Oh no.
always new ways to learn, and
I mean, I must
so
admit, I hate it when there's a young lad. I mean, that one of the lads that was on was he came to help me to finish getting his qualification papers as an
hmm
apprentice. Cracking lad, really really good. But say went to the job and right, and he was stopping like, mate, you're not doing like that. What do you mean? So here's a chisel, here's a bit of scrap wood, cut me a hinge out.
yeah,
He's like, you
hmm
what? I said, you're not using power tools, mate, until you can cut it out by hand. And I made sure
yes,
that he could do it
hmm
the correct way first.
yep,
But then, even though I do use a router, I do use a jig, there's been certain things he's done. I'm like, why are you doing it like that, mate? Well, I'm like, well, yeah, okay, that's not a bad idea, pal, because as you say, he's only 20, what? I think he's just, no, he's 19. Is he 19 or 20? He's young,
hmm
plays to
yeah,
me, I mean,
right,
I'm more than old enough to be his dad type thing, you know what I mean? But he comes up with these not ideas, but because he's seen things differently, because he's been brought up with a trade in a different format or a different way,
yeah.
um, I do learn things off the younger generation still.
Yeah, there's two reasons I like using hand tools, especially with students. Is one, it gives them respect of it's not as easy as just clamping a jig on, and routering out real quick and it's done. It's like, oh, that was easy. Everybody wants instant gratification these days, don't they? Quick and easy, done, perfect. Look at that. But what happens when I send these students out and they're on a job site and the power's gone? Oh, my batteries are dead, or there's no power. Well, it's easy. Just cut those hinges out with a chisel. Is it ideal? No, not necessarily, but it's going to get the job done today and you can forget about it. Well, if you've never been taught how to do that, then it's like, hold on a second, and using a chisel will also teach you about the grain of the wood and how going against the grain and with the grain and how it works, which is extremely important to understand because now, yes, you have a bit that's spinning at 15,000 RPMs and it's just going to chew right through it, but you don't know how that bit's going to react with that piece of wood. Is it going to tear out? People go, well, it's tearing out. And
If it hits a knot, it's going to bounce.
yeah, exactly. So it's really important, and I like it because hand tools are a little bit, it's slower paced, so you can take it all in. So yeah, it's really important from a teaching aspect to,
Yeah.
slow
I mean, I'm not.
steps and
I'm not great with a chisel when it comes to, I'd say, bench joinery, like the finer aspects of bench
yeah,
joinery and
yeah,
furniture making.
yeah,
I'm not brilliant. I can cut a hinge out, 100% everything
yeah,
will lock with a hinge. I could do that perfectly
yeah,
and nice and crisp and tight. But that's
right.
one. I mean, it's a real thing. Rate my hinge on the good old Facebook groups. But cutting out a hinge correctly and accurately with a chisel isn't as easy as what people think it
Oh my
is.
gosh. No, I tell you a perfect example. Paul Sellers on YouTube, you
Yeah,
know, oh, just take this real quick and we're just gonna, put this chisel here. We're gonna give it a couple strokes, just gonna sharpen it. Use a strop. Oh, look at that. I can cut my arm hair. And then he, couple taps here and there, and I'm like, oh wow, that's going to be a piece of cake. And then I go out there and do it myself, and I'm thinking, what, what did he do that I'm
It's
not
so
doing? I
easy.
don't understand. But it's the experience and understanding the tool. Like we do take things for granted, myself included. Even as experienced, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem. And then I go to do it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was a bit humbling, but it's good. I like stuff like that. You need to be humbled, bring yourself back, and go, okay, all right, yeah, let's adjust a little bit. You know.
Mm. But it's interesting you said about Paul Salazar, because actually one thing I did recently, talking about like learning new things or whatever, Paul does a kit you can buy
Hmm.
for making your own router plane. So
Right.
you buy a pack, I think it's about $30, something like that, £30. I'm not too sure. And in it, you basically get all the metal parts, the router plane, and a set of plans, which you
Hmm.
basically get a QR code that you download.
Right.
And I made the router plane myself. So you basically get some stock and you make your router plane. And you know what? I thoroughly enjoyed making it. It was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It
There's
was just
something
something
to be.
so different. And then because of that, one of my friends on, we had him a couple of weeks ago, Matthew, Moustache Workshop, because he
Hmm.
rebranded recently. He makes a lot of really cool knives and planes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So Matthew very kindly sent me the plans.
Hmm.
That's a good thing about connections. And so I've got a set of the original drawings, and I'm going to make a couple of planes, like a block plane and a low jack
Yeah.
plane and a smoothing plane. I was like, I'm not going to use them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to use them,
Well,
but they
you'd be
look.
surprised.
No, they
You
look
know,
pretty. I know I
it's
won't. I know I won't
yeah.
use them, mate. I'm not going to. They're going to go on the wall and look pretty with the nice mallet I've made and the nice router plane.
Yeah,
But
because I
it's
did.
the
I did
process of making
this.
things like that. It's
It
learning
is.
learning new things. I don't
Yeah.
make tools. I use tools. So to make a
Right,
tool,
and that's what
so
it
I
was for
might
me.
make some. I might even make a couple of chisels, get some Damascus steel, forge it all myself.
Hmm.
And then I might actually make a piece with all the tools that I've made. So I make the tools for the tools to make the piece. So it's that
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah. It's like chopping down the tree to make the birdhouse.
Oh, I've actually talk about that. That's another good thing. Again, about learning and say learning new things. So again, another one of our guests, we had Jerry on from Grantland Timber.
Uh-huh. Yep.
He's a funny guy, Jerry. He's very, very funny. I mean, we actually had one episode where we were both having a bit of a drink as well at the same time. So it got quite funny.
Yeah, we're not
Anyway,
very exciting today, are we? Coffee and tea, but you
no,
know.
well, to be fair though, I mean, I'm on 2 a.m. in the morning, so you're lucky I'm not half cut. But anyway, so yeah, because so Jerry has his own land, and they have sawmills and that, and he's very
Yes.
much into forestry. And for
Yes.
him, it's not about the wood sales or anything like that. The whole thing for him, it's the process and the full circle of life of the tree,
Oh
and
yeah.
that
Yeah.
side of things. But
Yeah, I can connect
but the
with
good
that.
thing
Yeah.
is, I've actually got the opportunity. I'm going to go down in fall. So what's that going to be about? Another couple of months yet for us, I think. Anyway, I'm going to go down and I get to spend a weekend with him, and we're going to fell a tree and mill the
Yeah.
tree.
It's
I've
yeah, yeah,
I've never
it
done that.
is.
I've never done it. And
Um,
then from that, I'm taking a board, because Jerry says I can have a board out the
yeah,
tree. I'm
yeah,
going to take the board, and obviously when it's dried out, which will be another year before I get it dried,
yeah,
because obviously I haven't got a kiln, so I'll just have to air dry it. So it'll be a good year. But I'm then going to
yeah,
make a piece
yeah.
of I'm going to make a piece of furniture with that tree. So I'll
It
actually
is so
I'll,
special.
I'll be able to take the tree out the ground,
Yep.
cut it down, and then I'm going to mill it. I'm then going to make the
Yes.
piece of furniture out of it.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably end up burning it because it'd be that bad. So it's the full circle of the tree. But no,
I've done that. On I've taken slabs, smaller slabs that have fallen. I had a cypress tree that was in my yard that fell, and I cut it up and I milled it on the bandsaw. I took the whole slab and put my spaces in between, put zip ties around to keep them all condensed, and let it air dry for a whole year before using them. And I find that air dried wood is actually stronger, and the saturation color is actually
yeah.
much nicer compared to a kiln. But yeah, I've done that as well. I worked with a local lumber company back when I was in South Florida, where we had fell a couple trees that we had from hurricanes. So nothing had been taken out of the ground, without a genuine purpose. And typically
Mm,
for us in South Florida, it's because we had hurricanes come through. So we had an Indian rosewood tree, very special tree. Yeah, a lot of guys want to put them in a chipper, and to me, I connect with those trees almost in like a hippie-like sense, if you want to call it that, because they're really special. That tree is still alive, even as a dining table. It's still alive, and to take the tree out of the ground and, like you said, and take it through the process, and then turn it into something magnificent, essentially you're upcycling it, and you're giving it a second
Hmm.
chance at life. Because once that tree's fallen down, there's no way that you're going to pick it back up and put it back in the ground and let it go again. It doesn't always happen like that. So to be able to turn it into something and not let it go to waste to me is a really special thing. But yeah, I love big timber. Again, with education, there's so many avenues, isn't there? Like woodworking, it's good to understand how a tree grows, and looking at the rings and knowing quarter sawn, flat sawn. I don't have, try to get rid of the knot because the knot always cracks, it always moves. So you learn like the crucial good parts of a tree, and you learn the not so good parts of the tree. And then you could be at the local lumber yard, and we have like a 4x4 pressure treated post, and they've all got the knots in them. Why? Because it's the center of the tree. Nobody wants it. But well, if it's a 4x4 post, who cares? It's probably going to be someone's fence post. If it cracks and splits, who cares? Nobody's going to know. So you kind of understand. Well, all right. Well, that's why they make that for that purpose, and that's why it's that price. And you understand the stability based on the grain and the way it is. So it's really interesting to study a
Hmm.
tree, and I think it's really important too to understand before you make a piece of furniture.
I do, yeah.
But
It certainly helps you improve. I mean, it's not been something. I mean, like, admittedly, it's never been something I've ever been interested in the slightest.
right.
Never
Yeah.
was. I'll go and pick up my bit of wood that I need, for whatever purpose it'll be, and then I'll do what I need to do with it. End of. I've always,
Yeah.
it's only been the last couple of years where I'll say I've actually started to really. It's not that I've never cared about my job. I've always enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I've always loved doing what I do. But the last couple of years, I've really started to really care about things a lot more. And not, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I sort of care about the quality of the wood. I care
Mhm.
about the process. I care about the finish I'm using, and I really care about every. And then learning about things, like you say,
Yeah.
learning about. I've never really cared about the trees. It's in the sense of
Yeah.
it's a bit of wood, but now I've been looking at the structures of the trees, as you say, understanding the trees, the way the
It's so
branches,
important. It's
and it
so
makes a big
important. Yeah.
difference.
That's what can
I can
set you
see the
apart from the
importance now.
crowd. You can make the best piece of furniture in the world, but if you look at the growth rings on a tree when you're putting a table together and realize, okay, well, if wood's going to move regardless, right? You can never get
Mm,
rid of that. It's alive. But, you look at growth rings, it's okay, well, these ones are going this way. Okay, those ones are going that way. So you try to alternate them if you can, or you try to go for, a quarter sawn or a flat sawn, which flat sawn's like very stable. That way you can kind of set the wood up for success, not just yourself, but hey, when this moves, this is how I want it to move. But if you have
mm.
them all go in the same way and eventually it does this, and
It's in
then
a cup, yeah,
yeah,
or
or
it's a couple or both,
understanding,
yeah.
yeah, oh, I'm going to put a metal base underneath my table. Well, don't tighten it too much because wood expands and contracts with
Mm.
the seasons.
But
But if
also
you
by
don't, you know,
also actually understanding the grain on a board, for example, if it's quarter sawn, flat sawn, crown sawn, whatever, it
hmm
you can notice the difference because obviously each type of board warrants a different price point.
yes,
So
it
by
does.
knowing what the board is, if you went to Joe Blogs and said, "Here's 3 bits of walnuts," which this is $30, this is $40, this is $50, they're going to pick the $30 one.
Yeah,
But they
because
don't
it's black
because it's
walnut.
cheaper. But it's cheaper.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah.
they're picking the $30 one. They don't
hmm
realise that, say, the $40 one might be 3 times better than the $30 one, the one that's $10 cheaper,
Yeah,
because you you're going to use a different board for different projects depending on what it
yeah.
is you're doing.
hmm
So again, but I mean, a lot of that I've learnt from. I mean, to be honest, I'm a bit old school in the sense that, and it sort of leads on. The next sort of bit is textbooks.
hmm
So I like books. Well, I don't really read, but I'm always one that I prefer paper copies of stuff. I don't like
Yeah, yeah.
looking at the internet or the screen, and it's easy for quick reference, like blah blah blah. But then, say if I've got a something I want to do, for example, a new project I'm trying to learn, I don't want to be having to reopen my fucking laptop every 10 minutes because the screen's gone to power save or whatever. I like to have a
Yeah.
physical printed. So I'll print something off if that's the case. But I haven't got that many joinery books. I've probably got about 20 or 30 joinery books,
Mm-hmm.
which I like. But my favourite, and it sort of brings me to think about the whole thing, is like I use them mainly for reference books. So I've got some nice, the complete Victorian house books, really good. So that has lots of different types of trim details in. So like the OGs, Taurus, Roman skirting, and all those ones, and it
Mm-hmm.
shows you which one's what.
Yeah.
Because again, if you don't know what one's called and what the other one's called, how are you going to know
Yeah,
what's what?
yeah, and I do like those books because some things never change, right? Like the grain of a log is never going to change. Like this, we know this is stable. We know all these things. So when you scroll through a book and they start showing you all the wood, I'm like, okay, yeah, I like this. Where the books get me, and I love books, but where the books get me is I never find any up to date ones. So they're going to give you
No,
all
gold.
these traditional, well, when you go to cut this, you can use a circular saw. And I'm thinking, well, nowadays we have track saws, so it's, there's different ways, which maybe a plan of mine is to eventually write a book,
And update it
a
to the
woodworking
current
book.
ways.
But yeah, put all the new current tools in there, because no one's ever done, and I
But the
understand it
reason,
because
yeah, but no one's done it because there's a thing called Google.
Google and YouTube. That's the way. If you want to learn
Mm,
something, Google it, YouTube it. People's
yeah.
attention span have just plummeted completely. So nobody can dive into a book and stay in it because my phone's buzzing, so I want to do this or do that. But let
Mm,
me tell you, a book, no matter what subject it covers, are golden nuggets of information that you can always rely on. Oh, Wi-Fi's down, your phone's dead, the book's still there.
mm,
So in that sense, I do love books, and I've learned so much from books themselves
mm.
about life that no one on the internet is teaching you. And yeah, like you said, misinformation. Usually, a book is a really good source of information. I'm sure there's misinformation in books out there, but I think it's
Absolutely.
far less, far, far less, because anybody can go on YouTube and post a video, but how many people can publish a book?
Mm.
So
I mean, the books I tend to use, I've got quite a lot of them actually of different subjects, is The Idiot's Guide to.
mhm.
So or Dummies. Is it Dummies or Idiot's Guide to? I'm not quite sure.
Dummies Guide to,
Is it
yeah,
Dummies Guide? So
yeah.
I've got one on Blender, which is a 3D animation software program, because I've been learning that over the last. I've not. I need to get back onto it actually because I've only done about 20 hours on it so far. I've got 3D printing SketchUp books all on the Dummies Guide because yes, I might use the internet for the initial point of learning something like a software program or whatever. Because I
Mhm.
think learning. Obviously, I still think I'm shit at drawing. It came up last week, that did. But you need to have those drawings. So I'm quite good with SketchUp. I can use SketchUp quite proficiently and do a good drawing. I can't do technical drawings on SketchUp. That's my next stage to learn. But
Yeah.
you need to know these sort of things. So I'm learning Blender because that's another whole other thing that I'm going to diverse into down the line with some other YouTube stuff. But I
Yeah.
do find the Dummies ones are quite good books. And the other book I really like, as far as joinery is concerned, is the Japan. Is it called the Complete Japanese Woodworking Book or something? It's a big, thick
Mhm.
reference book. It's got all the different because Japanese joinery joints
Oh my
are so
gosh,
intricate and
yeah.
amazing.
I
So I want.
love, love,
I
love, yeah.
really want to get. I've done a few. I've done about 4 or 5 different Japanese joints. They're not dead
Yeah.
tight or dead neat, but I enjoy doing them. They're hard, really hard to do, really hard. But I find things like I've got a book called I've never used it yet, actually called I think it's called like Simply Staircases
Yes.
or
Mhm.
Simply Stairs. It's one of the renowned books for setting out winders and that sort of thing. If you're making them yourselves.
Mhm.
Um, which I bought the book because it came up on offer. And I say on offer, it was still about £25 or something. It was still very expensive because it's a
Oh
reference
yeah,
book.
they are. Yeah, yeah, they can
Um,
be.
but I bought it because it came up cheap, 25 quid cheap for it. So I bought it. I don't think I've ever looked at it yet because I've never had the need to. But I think reference books, as you say, because the information's there, the pitch of a staircase ain't changing.
No, it's not.
It's
No,
staying at. It's
and
going to
I
be
think
42. It's going to be well. It changes within a degree or two, doesn't it? Like it's. I think in the UK it's got to be between 40 and 43 degrees. I might be
mhm.
wrong because I've not done regulations for building regs for a long
Yeah,
time.
that changes, which but that's the methods don't change necessarily. I mean, some of the angles might and whatnot,
Yeah.
and codes are going to change, but that's an easy fix, I think, in my opinion. But the methods are still there. Okay, the baluster spacing on a stair, or it's different today than it was in 1970 when this book was made. Okay, but I'm sure the process of putting in the balusters is still the same. We just have to
Well, the
space
maths
them
is the same.
differently.
The maths is exactly the
Yeah,
same.
yeah,
I mean, that made me
yeah.
laugh. What was it the other day that me one of the lads that used to work for me? I didn't work for me, sorry. He was one of the younger lads. He was like one of the apprentices who, when I was subbing at the job for the company, he worked for me. If you know what I mean, he was like the lad that worked for me on the jobs. He wasn't my employee; he just worked for me. And he was going on about. He put this sort of meme or something on about maths, how he never uses maths. I went, you what? I said, are you fucking nuts? You're a joiner. I said,
Yeah.
you use maths every day. I said, well, I don't. I'm like, okay. So you've got a piece of wood and you want to make it at a 90 degrees angle. What you doing? And he went, well, I'm going to use a square. I'm like, okay. So you do know that's the tool based on maths, don't you? And he went, you what? I went, 90 degrees. I mean, obviously you got the 3-4-5 method if you haven't got a
Yeah,
square.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
maths is such a massive part of joinery that
It is. Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting when you talk about math and what people learn and to be honest, I never made it through like high school. I dropped out way before 2 years before I was supposed to graduate, and I wasn't going to graduate anyways. I was failing terribly because I didn't want to apply myself. I didn't enjoy it. And it's so funny because I failed geometry and all the math classes because I wasn't interested, It was always these boring problems I didn't care about. And next thing you know, I'm a carpenter and I'm making furniture. Well, furniture's all angles, especially if you want to make some really intricate pieces. And I remember a turning point for me was building this table. And I even might have mentioned this in episode 1 about finding the angles of these legs and realizing, okay, well, this is a triangle and this is 360. And you take this out, it's 180. And then I was thinking, well, how am I going to make this work? And then I like tilted the saw over and I was like, hold on a second. I thought, oh, these two. And I start doing the math. I'm like, oh, that adds up to the whole number. I couldn't believe it. And I taught myself. So I really hope that when I teach or when other people learn, that maybe a subject that they're not very strong in, such as math, they can make it fun and they retain. I think when you have fun, you retain the information much better than you would, say, in a cold, dreary, boring classroom. Some people are really good at applying themselves. I was not. I was terrible. And yeah, here I am, terrible, failed geometry, could care less for it, become a carpenter, and I know so much about maths, and I know imperial and metric because I'm in the USA. And for the most part, I can just do all the numbers in my head. I mean, when I'm firing on all cylinders, I mean, I can get any number and divide it by this or that, and I'm fine. I'm thinking, and it's so funny because I do think to myself, I'm like, this was the kid that, failed high school. I failed math. I mean, I essentially failed everything except for maybe like art class because I really enjoyed, doing art. But I mean, how do you fail an art class these days unless you just don't care at all, Because I don't really
I
think
don't
there's a
think.
right.
I mean, do you actually have to even turn up to an art class to pass it? I don't know.
I know that's like the old wives' tale, isn't it? But it's like you can't really deny somebody if that's their art, and that's going into work. If that's what someone wants to create and that's what they call art, well, that's on them. I might not like it. I might disagree with it, but that's
Hmm.
my opinion. That doesn't mean anything to them.
No, I
So
mean, I do think as well. You do. I mean, obviously, Canelo, it was a lifetime ago when I was in school. Now, do you know what I mean? But yeah, there's a lot of pointless shit you taught at school, like a lot of pointless
oh my
shit.
God, yeah, yeah,
But at
yeah,
the same time, you sort of turn around. I mean, I was good at maths. I mean, I did my first year of A levels, and I did maths and further maths, and I was one of those ones where, I mean, the GCSEs, which are like the ones the exams you do when you're
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah, yeah,
15ish.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I breezed through them. I never picked up a book, never revised.
yeah.
I mean, I passed with just like basically a couple of B's and straight C's, which is like, C's classed like the main pass mark. I mean, F is a pass, but C is classed as the sort of CB's, the sort of thing.
Yeah,
I never even applied. I never even tried to do anything. so I just didn't need to.
Yeah,
And then
my
I did
my
my A levels, and I passed my first. So ours were all modular. So the first year, I absolutely breezed through them without even trying. I didn't even go to half the
right.
lessons, to be honest. I found the pub down the road was a lot more interesting. And do you know what? I gave up college after the first year because it was boring as shit. I didn't want to do sort of academic stuff. But you find yourself 30 years later, some of that useless, complete, pointless crap you learn is
Hmm.
actually quite useful because
It
everyone
can be.
says, I think it was my mate was saying that was it. Who the fuck uses trigonometry? Like, mate, you use it every day. No, I don't. You use it every day. No, I don't.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I use a square. Right, that's trigonometry. It's a tool based on trigonometry, mate. You use
Yeah, right.
trigonometry every fucking day without even realizing it.
Yeah. I think as well, it's realizing as well, like speaking of college and stuff like that, like when I went to, I was in high school, I was happy working with my hands. The fact that I knew that like all my friends were at school, sitting at a desk for 8 hours doing nothing. I mean, I'm not going to say nothing because they were learning, and obviously, however they decide to apply it. But you know, the tough part was that I was always looked down upon by peers, friends, neighbors, teachers. Like I was the example of, if you don't pay attention, you're going to be just like Tommie over there, and you're going to be, with the lower grade because essentially you're an idiot. And it's really hard to listen to that and then to think that now I'm making four, five, six times their salary, and I love what I do for a living. It's not all about the money, like don't
Oh
chase the
yeah,
money. But the fact that I'm 28 years old and I do make six figures to me, despite the economy and the inflation, um, I think I can be proud of myself for what I've accomplished, especially for the kid that everybody looked down upon or used as an
yeah.
example. Like
No, but it is.
that's so hard.
I mean, you probably got the ones now that probably did apply themselves, and I'm not trying to diss anybody here that does.
No, yeah,
And then they're probably turning around going, "Fuck, I wish I was earning what Tommy was earning, or doing what Tommy was doing," or because the tables have almost turned to a point. Because I mean, you're lucky in the sense of
I
because
am.
obviously quite often the ones that don't apply themselves do drop out. They never make anything for themselves. They never make
Yeah,
anything
there
other
are
than,
there are people like that.
do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah.
probably why you were pointed out you'll be like Tommy because that is the way generally people tend to go when they
Most
don't
people,
go to.
yes, yeah.
So obviously we're not saying don't drop out of school or anything like that.
Yeah,
God
and
forbid, don't do that. But it just shows that
yeah,
you don't necessarily need the academic.
and I
I
knew.
went to a Catholic
Uh,
school, so we had to do religious education. What a point of pot pile of crap that was. What it was a waste of 2 hours a week. Do you know what I mean?
right, right.
Pointless. Unless you want to teach that particular subject, or
Yeah,
if you want if you want to go into, I don't know, something to do with religion. Again, I'm not knocking religion, but for me, it was a waste of 2 hours of my life every week.
I knew at 15 years old because I was already working like with my dad, hands on. I knew. I mean, I was sitting there in class, like looking around the room, and I'm thinking, not to downplay some of those people because there are some very smart academic people that became doctors and surgeons,
Hmm,
and that's really wonderful. We need those people.
absolutely.
Um, but I was just looking around thinking, I'm like, I would look around and think I'm wasting my time. I really am. I'm not learning anything. I don't care. I know what I want to do, and sure, I could be a statistic, but I knew in my head where I was going to go, and I was determined. And I think once I have a plan, I'm going to do whatever I can to achieve it. I'll get there. It might not be easy and it might
Hmm.
not be quick, but I will get there. And I think the biggest thing as well to learn in life is that not everybody needs to go to college. Not everybody is going to become a doctor. There's plenty of us like myself. I have zero college debt. I, I pay for my van, which is an investment for me. I
Hmm.
own all of my tools. I mean, financially, I'm doing fantastic. And then you get these people that go to college, they have a degree. And it's like, well, are you actually doing the career that you went to school for? Well, no, because either I actually changed my mind or I can't find a job. So what are you doing now? Well, I'm a waiter or a waitress at this restaurant. And again, not to knock those people because they are very important, But
Absolutely,
you
but
know,
yeah,
you've set out a plan and it's all completely flopped. And I get it. I'm not perfect, and not everything in my life goes to plan. And getting to my point is, if someone wants to become a bartender or a gas station clerk or whatever it is, that's fantastic, because without those people, society does not work. I need the gas station clerk or the petrol station clerk because I need to fill up my car. You know, if something goes wrong, I need people to stock the
it
shelves at the
is.
grocery store. So there's nothing wrong with those jobs, but they have it ingrained in our brains, particularly here in the US, that if you don't go to college and get this many degrees and sign up for $100,000 plus worth of debt, that you're going to become a complete failure. And if you take this plan, you will live the American dream and you'll be a complete success. And it's a scam, in my opinion.
Mm.
Again, doesn't apply to everybody,
Oh,
but it
absolutely, but
applies to
it
a
does. But
lot
it's
of
exactly
people.
what I had a conversation with my sister going back when she was 22, 21, 22 years old, maybe. I mean, my sister is a renal consultant now.
Hmm.
She's, the only reason she's not a surgeon is because she's got bad hands, I think, or dodgy eyes, or both. I don't know. But she's very good and successful
Yeah.
as a renal doctor, a thing.
Yep.
But I remember telling me back then, because it's when she was still at university, doing a doctorate degree. In fact, it was just after. So you do a science degree, then you go and do a doctorate to become a doctor, obviously. But she just done a science part, and she was just telling me that you're only a joiner. I went, really? She went, yeah, you're
Yeah.
just a joiner. I went, right. She went,
Just, yeah.
I'll be a
Yeah.
doctor, blah, 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 this. I said, all right, great. I said, I'm proud of you. But I'm not just a fucking joiner. I said,
Yeah.
who the fuck builds your house? Who fixes
Yeah,
your house?
precisely. Yep.
Who builds the hospitals? I said,
Yeah.
yeah. So I said, we've just been out for a meal, have we not? She went, yeah. I said, who cooked you your food? Who served you your food? That
Yeah.
person, you just got you the drink at the bar. Who served you that? I said,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we don't need doctors. I said this to her. I said, I'm not saying we don't need
Yeah.
doctors, but I said, unfortunately, I said, we need every single person that does a job,
And
because without the
yeah.
trash, so without people collecting the trash or the rubbish, as we call it here, right? If they didn't come round every week, 2 weeks, whatever it is they do, there'd be a massive sanitation problem, and we'd end up back with things like the bubonic plague and
Right.
dysentery and
And
those things that kill
yeah.
thousands or hundreds of thousands of people.
And put yourself in that person's shoes. If you think, oh, you know, well, they're just a waiter. How hard it can be? You just got to go fetch food from over there on the cook line and just bring it to the table. What's the big deal? And I'm like, well, try standing on your feet, you know, running back and forth for 8 to 10 hours. Have a couple crappy tables that don't tip you. So now your morale's pretty low, and you now you have to keep a smile on your face for the next table, because you know the next table has
They
no
might
idea
tip
what
you.
you just went through. Yeah, they might tip you really good, and you know, oh, okay, now take a tray, you know, bounce all that food, and try not to make a complete pleb out yourself if you know if you drop it. All these things, like, it's not as simple as people think. You know, when I first started my business, it was really slow. I did valet for a high-end restaurant, and I was, you know, making good cash tips. And you think, oh, it's a valet. Well, that's easy. Well, line up all these cars that are all coming in at once and keep everybody happy, because customer satisfaction is really difficult. And then, oh, while you're at it, you're going to go from a Ferrari to a Mercedes to a Honda, and every car acts differently. You have to figure out how, you know, if you jump in a Ferrari and go, well, how do you put it in neutral? Well, there's no shifter down here. It's an automatic. Oh, you grab both of the paddles. There's all these things that you have to learn. It doesn't matter what job it is. There is a learning curve to all of it. So never knock anybody's job. And I'm completely okay if someone wants to become a trash man. Fantastic. If that's what makes you happy every single day, I'm thrilled for you. I don't like knocking anybody, because I know how that feels. And yeah, if you've never felt that, it's not a pleasurable feeling.
Yeah. So I think that is the perfect note to leave this episode on. We'll finish it off.
Yeah,
Yeah, just if you want to become a unicorn, be a fucking unicorn. End of.
exactly.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
whatever floats your boat. I'm not
do
worried
whatever
because I've
makes you
got my
happy.
own boat to worry
Can't,
about.
yeah, say you can't do exactly what makes you happy because you know somebody might want to be a serial murderer, and we don't want that person to do what they want to do.
No, no, that's
But
not a very happy one.
yeah, but as a rule, yeah, do what makes you happy. So everybody, as normal, links will be in the description. If you want to ask us any questions, please do so. You can contact me on my own personal page. Also, we've got the Wooden Work podcast page on Instagram and Facebook if you want to reach out. Tommie's links again, Black Label Carpentry. Any questions for him, please ask him, ask us. We'll pass them on. We'll get them answered in a future recipe.
Absolutely.
A future episode.
Yeah.
Again, please leave us your reviews. Don't forget there will be some sort of giveaway once we are 500 reviews, and it won't be some crappy prize. It will be a decent item. So yeah, we're on all double platforms. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, watching, do whatever you're doing, and taking time. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you. Thank you, Tommie.
Thanks, everyone.